Yo. Well. It would appear that it's that time again. Time to deep dive into yet another massive iceberg. I'm sure you know the drill by now of these sorts of videos, so I won't bore you with any of that. But I would like to shout out the creator of this iceberg, Nora, who not only put this massive iceberg together, but they also personally contacted me to cover this iceberg, provided me with a Google Doc of extra information so that we can very clearly see what every entry on this iceberg is about, or at least point me in the right direction of where to start researching, and generally just put a ton of hard work, passion, and time into this thing. So an absolute gigantic thank you and shout out to them. But with that said, after our traversing of the deep and exhibition through Creepypasta Island, I think it's time we go somewhere a little more refined, you and me. A place full of wonder, years of lore, mysteries, tragedies, horror, and a good helping of gringe and general good old-fashioned weirdness for good measure. The place that I refer to, of course, is none other than... What have I got? The DeviantART Museum. But first, before we go skulking around the deepest corners of DeviantArt and honestly the internet at large, I want to tell you about today's sponsor, Surfshark VPN. As someone who enjoys wandering the web, I've seen far too many stories of people being taken advantage of when they didn't take their online privacy seriously enough. That's why I personally use a VPN to protect all my personal data. With Surfshark VPN, you can take control of your data, know when to change passwords to prevent breaches, protect your identity, and get notified if your personal data has been leaked somewhere online. You can even browse the internet privately using Surfshark VPN, as it will encrypt your internet activity so no one can track or steal your data. Surfshark VPN is also great for people who like to travel, as you can use it on unlimited devices, avoid travel restrictions, keeping your digital freedom while traveling to internet-restricted countries, get easy access to block streaming platforms, get past geo-blocks and government restrictions, and just generally stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Again, for the type of videos I create, using Surfshark VPN really helps in ensuring no matter what weird corners of the internet I may find myself, I can at least rest easy in knowing that my data and internet browsing history is safe and secure. For all these reasons and more, Surfshark VPN's 24 months VPN plan is a seriously great purchase, and one of the best options that you can find right now. In addition, Surfshark also has a great offer to go with this deal. 3 extra months plus 83% off. Just scan this QR code on screen or click the link in the description and use my promo code OWL to get this amazing deal. Just try it out for yourself. You won't find a better VPN solution for all your devices with 24/7 support. And if for any reason you're not satisfied with this deal, it has a 30-day money-back guarantee. So, what are you waiting for? Try out Surfshark VPN using this promo code today. Thank you so much to Surfshark VPN for sponsoring this video. And with that, let's dive right back in. Be you an old-time user back from the 2000s, to a newer user, or someone who's only ever heard mentions of this fabled place, you are sure to discover many new things from within the walls of this abode of art. I've also got some history with this website, so I'll be recounting some old memories and tales from my early days on the internet, as we go along. So, with that in mind, let's begin our tour through its halls and see what wonders we may discover. The origin. DeviantArt is an American online art community that features artwork, videography, photography, literature, etc. And the site first launched on August 7th of 2000 by Angelo Sortia, Scott Jarkoff, and Matthew Stevens, among others, as part of a larger network of music-related websites called the D-Music Network. The site flourished largely because of its unique offering and contributions of its core member base and a team of volunteers after its launch, but was officially incorporated in 2001, about 8 months after launch. All three of the co-founders shared backgrounds in the application skinning community, but it was Matt Stevens who had the perhaps most major contribution to the website, that being the suggestion to take the concept further than skinning and more towards a general art community. Many of the individuals involved with the initial development and promotion of DeviantArt still hold positions with the project, with Angelo Sorita currently serving as the Chief Executive Officer of DeviantArt Incorporated, for example. Oh, and if you're wondering what the term skinning refers to, well, again, according to Wikipedia, in computing, a skin is a custom graphical appearance preset package achieved by the use of a graphical user interface, or GUI, that can be applied to specific computer software, operating system, and websites to suit the purpose, topic, or tastes of different users. As such, a skin can completely change the look and feel and navigation interface of a piece of application software or operating system. Software that is capable of having a skin applied is referred to as being skinnable, and the process of writing or applying such a skin is known as skinning. Applying a skin changes a piece of software's look and feel. Some skins merely make the program more aesthetically pleasing, but others can rearrange elements of the interface, potentially making the program easier to use. So, in other words, skinning is the design or art of interfaces in applications. I suppose an easy example of this would be the difference between light and dark mode. As simple as it is, that would be a different skin, I suppose. Of course, once the floodgates were opened from this very specific niche onto just general art, the website would truly then begin to flourish. In fact, back in July of 2011, DeviantArt was the largest art community, and by 2015, the site had over 358 million images, which have been uploaded by its over 35 million registered members. Of course, things are a little bit different now, but we'll get to that later. Now it's time to start going over the many functions, terminology, and general basic info about the site, as well as some of its more notable members and communities, of course. Fella. Fella is the official mascot of DeviantArt, or a DA as I'm going to now start referring to it as. His design can be traced back to 2001, with him being the winner of a contest to design a mascot for the site. From my own research, it would seem that the creator of the iconic mascot went by the username of Switched on DA. However, his account has since been deleted, so we unfortunately cannot see what else the user did or get any basic info about them. However, what is known is that Fella used to look a bit different before he was redesigned by user The Kid Chaos, or Pedro. Pedro would also design the first official plushie for Fella, which was released back in 2007. The toy was very popular and it sold out pretty quickly, thanks to the holiday sales of that year. Fella would then go through yet another redesign once more by Pedro in 2008, which design-wise I can only describe as a clear case of Raymanification. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing. This is the design that is still being used to this very day, the most iconic of them all. Pedro also once wrote a little something about the character of Fella and why he thinks the mascot is so beloved to this day. Quote, "Fella is one cheeky little guy. He represents the mischievous, devious artist inside us all. He's that spark that makes you go nuts and bananas and come up with some awesome piece. That's why every deviant loves him," unquote. Journals. Journals are sort of the personal yet public diaries for users to share their thoughts and concerns. I suppose it works a lot like tweets, but there was some elements of customization to them, which we'll get into later. Needless to say though, journals are where you could post updates about future art projects, use it as a personal diary for everything or anything you're doing in your life, complete like artist tags and shout other people out, and it was sure to be a place where people posted about whatever drama was going on in whatever community, group, friend group, or even their own personal lives that was going on at that given moment. Augmented by the ability to appoint the very top of a journal with your general mood and what you're currently playing and eating and whatever. So basically, they're just a long-form Twitter post. Collections. This is just in reference to how DA users can make small folders to categorize their art. By genre, fan art versus original stuff, prose versus poems, etc. Artists can also categorize their favorites or art that they really like this way as well. And there are even some users that had some rather infamous or prestigious favorite collections that made one of your pieces of art being a part of made the piece, and by extension you, a part of a bigger collection for better or worse. This was also used as a means of trolling, as some people had collections made up of what they deemed to be bad, cringe, disgusting, etc. And thus was used as a sort of cringe compilation but for art. While others had collections that were all about showcasing art that was by smaller creators that they really enjoyed and thought people should see. And these would usually also be followed up by journals, which would sometimes be tied into these collections to further showcase all the new art by lesser known artists that was being created. There were entire accounts dedicated to both the positive and the negative and the neutral to all these collections, all working as part of the bigger picture, the ecosystem of the DeviantART website. And speaking of being a part of a larger picture, groups. Groups are basically like fan pages you can make on DeviantArt that other members can follow and be a part of. Or I guess if you really must make this comparison, I guess it's sort of similar to making a subreddit, but on DeviantArt. These groups can be for a specific genre of art, for a fandom, which the majority of them were for that, as well as a niche interest, niches or subgroups from within a fandom, a role-playing group, and pretty much anything else that you can possibly imagine. As we go through this iceberg, we'll be covering several groups, especially those that are, well, the most interesting, shall we say. Groups are a very concentrated version of DeviantArt to me, because some of the darkest and most bizarre aspects of the site can be found fairly easy within them. But of course, there were also plenty that were perfectly fine and fun to be a part of, for being all up to date with the current art, fanfictions, or just general community of a fandom that you happen to really enjoy. I remember for myself back in the day, whenever I was first going on DeviantArt, those groups would have been for things like Sonic the Hedgehog, Spyro the Dragon, Crash Bandicoot, Star Fox groups, basically whatever video game / anime franchises I just happened to be a fan of. And at one point, I even had a super popular group dedicated to creative writing and reading / critiquing other people's works. This is kind of a funny thing looking back, since I really didn't know what the hell I was personally doing writing-wise, being a very young teen at the time after all, but I created a group because I liked the idea of reading other people's works and in exchange them reading your own and giving each other thoughts on your written stuff. But that being said, as the founder of a fairly popular creative writing group, suddenly a lot of eyes were put on my work at that time, which was very fun for me to see, especially when I remember all the genuinely nice things people had to say about, well, frankly, my terrible, awful writing. Like seriously, whatever edgy phase you thought you were going through, it didn't even come close to the type of running with scissors stuff that I was doing at the time. Of course, for good reason, I also got a fair bit of criticism through all this as well, all of which I really did take to heart, and there might have even been a couple really good lessons that came from the whole thing. But I suppose I bring this up all to say that these groups really had a way of connecting people on this site. I ended up getting a lot of friends because of that group, though some people might have used it as a general dumping ground for their art related to whatever fandom that they're currently in, so that maybe some more eyes can get on it. These really were social hubs. And being the head of such a group, or among its staff, put a lot of eyes on you, with some even looking at them as a sort of leader or important member of the community, even if it was, in reality, just some guy or gal who made a fan page on the site. DeviantArt Summit. Speaking of groups, the Summit is an invitation-only group. It's the largest photography-based group and is very heavily moderated. On their page, they say the following about themselves. Quote, "Welcome to the Summit. We carefully select the unseen and the renowned alike, so that they may be viewed equally. We select only the best from you. We do not accept submissions, so please do not ask. They will feature an exceptional artist every so often. As soon as we can become a supergroup again, we will resume blogs and journals. Please be patient and look forward to amazing artists once more. Join the movement and be part of the revolution." Unquote. Pretty elite group, or at least that's how they like to carry themselves anyway. Of note, however, is it seems the group has since gone dormant, as there has not been a new journal entry for the group since 2012, and all the newest submissions to this prestigious group all last come from 2014. There also seems to have been some interviews with two of the co-founders and its single moderator, but all three of the pages to these three interviews are no longer available, as well as all of those three going dormant as well. Still, I suppose the gallery still remains as a legacy of a once respected group full of very talented photographers, best works of the time. Ratings. Many artists allow ratings on their art, with a rating out of 5 stars being available to be given, as well as rating various aspects. This was something you could turn on or off, and you could also allow or disallow official critiques of your work as well, in case you did or did not want any of that. Of course, this wouldn't stop people from commenting their thoughts either way on a piece in the comment section, but it was a feature all the same. Notes. This is just a name for DeviantArt's direct messaging system. While now we may share drama through leaked Discord and Twitter DMs, back in the day, they all came from this place. More Like X. The More Like X is a tab when viewing any given piece of art that shows similar pieces, and many of which often lead down a rabbit hole of bizarre and random art. If you're at all familiar with how it works on YouTube, which, I mean, you're watching this video right now, I'm sure you're aware of how it works, you can really find yourself in strange and interesting places if you do this for long enough. Though I would be amiss if I did not note that on DeviantArt in particular, the strange place it almost always leads to is fetish art of pretty much every variety. Stash. This was a sister site to DA of sorts that acts as a sort of storage space for your art. Not much more to it than that. Badges. Badges are small pixel icons that show up next to a user's profile, with each having a different meaning. Some of these badges were given out for participating in a site-wide event. Some were given out after special milestones had been crossed on your profile, and others were purely a thing that could be gifted/traded with other users, with the most popular badge that was very often traded being Llamas. Llamas are one of those things that were really popular on the site. Downright iconic even. And everyone had at least a few, as they were given out for free to any user you wanted to give them to, essentially. Llamas were given out to people you were friends with, people you were a fan of, or just for the hell of it. And there really didn't have to be any particular reason you gave someone a llama badge. And there were even some people that ran around the site just giving them out like candy to every single person that they saw. After a bit, if you collected a certain amount of llama badges, the badge would then upgrade to like a super llama, and then to an albino llama, a ninja llama, a fancy llama, a king llama, and so on and so forth. You could say that having a certain amount of these on your profile was a bit of a status symbol. A status symbol that means absolutely nothing, but since, you know, say you had 1,000 llamas, it did mean that at least 1,000 different users went to your page and gave you one. So when you saw someone with, say, a fancy or king, or hell, even a golden llama, you knew that they were pretty damn popular, well, along with being able to see how many page views they had gotten and how many followers they probably had, of course. Hell, they even sold llama plushies, but we'll get to that in a minute. Stamps. Stamps are little icons users would use to express small tidbits about themselves. The stamps would usually say something like, "This user is X," or "This user likes X." People would put their astrological sign here, what fandoms that they're a part of, parts of their personality, religion or lack thereof, sexuality, career choice, etc. These would also have a rather divisive counterpoint with the rise of anti-tags, which are the same as normal tags but would often be separately categorized, as it was about what things the user doesn't like, what kind of users they are against, from fandoms to philosophies, racism, types of art, or even in some cases specific users or people, since some people were pretty petty, and you bet that they'd be petty enough to make a tag just to denote who their enemies were. This of course would only be seen as hilarious by whoever the enemy was, but at the same time, I did see a lot of these back in the day. Some people really thought they were owning the trolls by making a little stamp card they put on their profile page showcasing that they don't like this guy for everyone else to see. Stamps was just another piece of customization one could have on their page, and everyone who used DA as a sort of social media platform was sure to have a ton of stamps on their page somewhere. Membership. Similar to YouTube Premium, Core Membership is a paid subscription users can purchase for a wide array of benefits, be they custom page layouts, more storage and stash, the ability to schedule post days in advance, changing your username, and more. This was how you could really make your page stand out, and was one of those things that frequent users of the site would buy into to further express themselves. Again, in fact, I remember getting this membership thing a few times back when I was a teen. Points. Points were an online currency used for DA. Points could be purchased using actual money, and points most often were used to purchase commissions. They were also something you could hand out to people as a sign of appreciation, a bit of a donation if you will. And they could also be used to buy memberships and other things on the website, such as stuff from the shirt and gear shop. This is now defunct, but this was the shop for various DA merch, from shirts to hoodies, etc. But the thing I remember being the most popular were the plushies, especially the fella plush, as well as the llama plushies, though it seems as though the store was closed around early 2013. And, another fun piece of trivia, I just so happen to own not one, but 2 super llama plushies. Yep, that's right, I'm outing myself as one of those guys that bought a super llama back in the day. Though, since the store has been closed for literally 10 years at this point, and far fewer people bought this super llama plushie versus like the fella plushie, I now happen to own 2 extremely rare pieces of DeviantArt history, I'll have you know. Though what's kind of funny is when I tried to research how much these things tend to sell for online, I had a bit of trouble finding anyone selling them period online, which means I don't actually know what these things are worth. I saw the fella plushie selling for about $100 on eBay, but that's about as close as I got. But still, marvel at probably one of the only videos you're ever going to see of this plushie in action. Commissions. While not exclusively or even really started by DA, commissioning as a whole is pretty ingrained into the history of the site. Commissioning is the act of paying an artist to draw something for you. Commissioning to this day is still a really good way for artists to get paid for their work. And as noted earlier, some even allowed points to be used as currency, though this was often done by younger users since, the points kind of are worthless at the end of the day, especially now. Requests were also fairly popular amongst smaller artists who wanted to just get started drawing for others and work their way up to commissions as well. Art trades. Art trades are when artists collaborate and one would draw the other person's OC or original character while the other person draws the other person's OC. This was a pretty fun way to try your hand out at drawing someone else's character in your own style while getting to see your own character in their style. Art memes. While not exclusive to DA, art memes can be traced back to the site. Essentially, you draw your OCs or canon characters to match a meme or template or funny screenshot. Think those draw your OCs like this memes you see on Twitter or the draw the squad memes from Tumblr. I also remember huge art trades being done, and these were 5, 6, 7, or even 10 or however many artists in a friend group would use a core base or meme template and each draw their characters as part of the squad. Usually they'd all be playing video games or hanging out at some kind of big dinner table or partying or something like that. This was also very popular for groups and what I like to refer to as DA families to do, which, speaking of, bonus entry, DeviantART families, otherwise known as DA families. This is something that I don't think is really unique to DeviantArt, but I remember the highest concentration of it I've ever seen comes from DeviantArt. Basically what a DeviantArt family is you take your friend group and then list them on your main profile page as your brothers, sisters, cousins, father, mother, wife, husband, etc. And then every other person in that group who is a part of the family then lists that in like the exact same order but from their perspective. Thus you all have matching pages for the canonized pretend DeviantArt family. Now, I really couldn't say where or why this first came to be, but I wanted to make note of it here because this was extremely common. I saw it all the time back when I used to use DeviantArt as a teen. It was often seen as both a very normal thing to do as well as a symbol that you were part of a greater group. And it's also a phenomenon that I haven't really seen emulated exactly the same way. The closest I've seen it is sometimes people have stuff like this in Discord servers, I guess. But that's like one person setting up a whole big thing versus like groups up to 30 people all setting up this big DeviantArt family thing. Not even necessarily passing judgment, just felt like it should be noted. Carlos Ramirez. Most of you, through one means or another, are probably familiar with the troll face, right? It's been used unironically and ironically for years at this point. It's evolved in some ways, and in many ways is sort of a precursor to the, I guess, more modern-ish Wojak, and just generally speaking is quite popular, and kind of a piece of internet iconography, I'd argue at this point. Well, I wonder how many of you know about this infamous face's origins. The earliest known use of the troll face is on Carlos's own DeviantArt page, under his account, Wine. You can see its original use here. The troll face was made as sort of a satirization of trolls and internet culture of the time. Posted in September of 2008, the now infamous MS Paint webcomic poking fun at 4chan's /vboard would eventually make its way onto 4chan and later Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and the internet at large. However, in a funny twist of fate, the troll face became something of an actual face, a persona for trolls to use that was recognizable, perhaps even slightly relatable, and would be used by nearly everyone at least at one time or another back in the day. Which I suppose really goes to show that old tried and true piece of advice: don't feed the trolls. Because sometimes that piece of humble pie you thought was meant to own them, they just might use as the basis for a bakery that turns into a worldwide chain. To this very day, the troll face is often used with its current evolution into troll face stories or incidents, being an example of that here. It's also become a sort of symbol for that time frame of the internet, generally speaking. The good old days, some may say. It all long going past its original use intent, which is undeniably a very internet outcome for such a thing. Also of note is in 2011, a man claiming to be Carlos sent an email to an unknown individual claiming that the troll face being shared on Reddit violated his copyright. This wouldn't be the last instance of this either, as in 2015, the game Meme Run would be removed from the eShop following a DMCA. It should also be noted, by the way, that because DeviantArt was the birthplace of the troll face, you can bet that there was a lot of emojis and a lot of people using troll face and other troll face comic emojis and faces all over the site for quite some time. Art turned into memes. This entry is just referencing that there are many pieces of art from DA that would later be used in memes, with one popular example being this picture of a knight protecting a princess, which was created in 2015 by DA user Walp, who is pretty damn popular and prolific, might I add, and makes some pretty stunning pieces of art. Sketchbook. This is a free program that artists can use to post directly to DA from. It's also fairly popular. DeviantArt World Tour. Started in 2009, this is the live event world tour of various cities with artists being highlighted and even invited to join, including Sydney, Singapore, Warsaw, Istanbul, Berlin, Paris, London, New York City, Toronto, and Los Angeles. During the world tour, the new portfolio feature of DA was also previewed to attendees. It was a way for the community of DeviantArt from around the world to come together and show off their stuff. There's actually some footage of these events as well as some of the other DeviantArt related events we're about to go over here in a moment that was thankfully recorded and documented. I don't want to go over too much of it here, but you can look forward to a future live stream where I'll be looking at all these in detail, just for a bit of fun. DeviantArt Summit. Not to be confused with the group as mentioned earlier, on June 17th and 18th of 2005, DeviantArt held their first ever convention, the DeviantArt Summit, at the Palladium in the Hollywood area of Los Angeles. The summit consisted of several exhibitions by numerous artists, including art scene groups old and new at around 200 different booths. Giant projection screens displayed artwork as it was being submitted live to DeviantArt, which was receiving 50,000 new images daily at the time. Bonus entry, birthday bashes and Deviant Meet. This is yet another live event where artists could meet up. In 2010, European DeviantArt members held a Deviant Meet to celebrate DeviantArt's birthday in August, and there was also a celebration that same year in the House of Blues in Hollywood. Again, these are pretty self-explanatory, they were DeviantArt conventions. Bases/pixel dolls. Oh, now this one is rather notorious. Bases or dolls are blank drawing guides users can draw over, with them being most common for anime characters, My Little Pony, furries, and Sonic the Hedgehog characters. These were hotly contested at the time, and many found them to be in bad taste since some considered it cheating to just trace over a drawing someone else made and then call it your own art. Though it should be noted that bases were originally made with the express purpose of doing that, which at least for me means they're not quite on the same level as just literally tracing over someone else's art. But then again, I suppose no one was stopping someone from making a base out of someone else's drawing, and then someone else would trace over the base, and So now it's like stealing art from another art, and it could all get rather complicated fast. Just on a personal note, it really helps if you just don't care at all, which is my personal stance, at least on my own stuff, but you know, that's just me. There were many that also thought that the bases could be used as a good jumping off point for dynamic poses and the like, which there are many people on DA to this day that are essentially live human bases posing in various ways for reference. And you'd be hard pressed to not see a professional artist that doesn't at least use a reference once in a while, if not fairly frequently. However, many wouldn't do that and instead would literally just draw hair and skin-tight clothing on top of the MS Paint drawing, which often looked pretty tacky to say the least, but not really any more offensive than someone just going ham and doodling all sorts of random things in MS Paint. YouTuber Izzy also made a video breaking down the history of this practice, so if you want more lore about the drama of these things, you can go check that video out. She goes way more in depth than I can really go into here for this iceberg. But needless to say, this was a hotly debated topic of DA, and entire groups were dedicated to both creating bases, trashing on bases, and everything in between. Everyone had an opinion, some being far more louder than others. Furries. While DeviantArt isn't the origin point for furries, in its prime, DA had arguably the largest furry community of any online platform, with many well-known fursuiters getting their start with DA. Now, if you somehow never heard of furries, or maybe don't really know what they are, according to wikifur.com, quote, "Someone who says they are furry is generally expressing an interest in anthropomorphic animals and or creatures, and perhaps some affiliation to furry fandom. They may express that interest in a variety of ways, through art and stories, through roleplay and performance, like fursuits. How deep or meaningful interest in furry is varied greatly from person to person. Below is a list of common interests with which a fur is likely to identify. A furry may be interested in any or all of them to any degree. Cartoons and games. Interest in anthropomorphic animals and or creatures can be as simple as the many popular furry cartoon characters known as funny animals. These may include Bugs Bunny, Tony the Tiger, Sly Cooper, Star Fox, etc. However, someone who merely happens to like these characters is not necessarily a furry. The degree and nature of one's interests are relevant here. Spirituality. Some furs believe they have a spiritual connection to a particular animal, which is typically their fursona, but also may be a totem. Strong spiritual believers may often say that they are an animal in a human body, and in fact may identify themselves as otherkin, wares, and or Therians, which are their own categories and not linked to furry fandom just by interest. Some join and find the furry fandom to be a place to be themselves, as most of their groups are underground and the furry fandom is more open to the world. However, not all Therians have their Therotype as their fursona. Art and creativity. Some furs may be interested only in the creative aspect of the furry fandom. Furry content, both online and off, is easy to obtain and available in vast amounts. The furs produce new works regularly. Furry artwork is also done by many non-furries as well in targeting the fandom. Others may disassociate themselves from the fandom and refer to themselves as funny animal artists. Furries may also enjoy role-playing a particular furry character or persona, sometimes writing about this character or recording their online interactions for posterity. Fursuiting. Some furries enjoy the practice of dressing up in a costume that is typically designed after a fursona. These fursuits are usually worn at conventions, and a few are even designed to accommodate sexual situations. Some furries opt to wear a partial suit, consisting of a head, tails, and paws, instead of a full fursuit. Others may just wear a tail or varied other pieces. While only a minority, about 15 to 20%, consider themselves fursuiters. They tend to be highly visible at events where many furries are present. And finally, sexuality. To some furs, the sexual attraction to anthropomorphic animals is part of what makes them furry. This is a topic of much controversy, as it has been the subject of early media attention, such as that from the Wired magazine and Vanity Fair, leading to its becoming a common stereotype of the furry community at large. This has spawned a few groups in response, such as the Burned Furs, with a desire to discourage this angle or create a clear distinction between these furries and the rest of the community, unquote. Now, the reason I went through the trouble of really going over every aspect of what furries are is because we're going to be seeing a lot of them across this iceberg, and in particular, that last sexuality aspect of the fandom is going to be coming up a lot. So it's important to know the context. That being said, these days furries, like most, are pretty much everywhere, and many furry artists also find their home over at Fur Affinity, which I believe actually came about around 2005, which is kind of like a DeviantArt, but just specifically for furries. But all the same, furries are an important piece of this site's history and general community, both the best of them and the worst of them. And on that topic, bonus entry, Sonic the Hedgehog art. Yet again, we'll be going into more specific individuals and communities in later tiers, but to say Sonic the Hedgehog art was popular on DA is, well, the understatement of a century. Everything from fan art, fanfiction, heated fandom wars, strange members who became stories in of themselves that goes far beyond the depths of DA, and everything else that DeviantArt is, the good, the bad, and the ugly, its very essence, so too is Sonic the Hedgehog. And the same goes for our next entry, bonus entry, MLP art. Everything I just said about Sonic, you can nearly double it as far as My Little Pony fandom is concerned, though I don't know the exact statistics on that, that's just how it felt. I'll never forget when that show really started getting super popular, and bronies were first coming about in full swing as a thing. That is to say, an adult man who enjoys a My Little Pony show, for those who are unfamiliar somehow. I used to go into the new deviations page on the site all the time, just so I could see all the new art. It was also kind of a fun way to meet new people, because you could see a lot of smaller artists through this that would be willing to talk with you and discuss art and fandom and all that sort of stuff. Well, during the time when MLP was really at its height, I distinctly remember the new deviations page on that site. For a time, you could not refresh that page without seeing at least 5 to 10 new pieces of My Little Pony fan art. It was unprecedented. And while MLP is certainly something that may be more connected with 4chan and the general internet at large more so than it is specifically DeviantArt, I feel like it's at least very much worth a mention. Fetish art. So this one will be expanded upon in future entries, but it cannot be understated enough just how much fetish art is on DA. In fact, for many, DeviantArt is almost universally known as a site that has tons of fetish art ranging from every imaginable direction, with the most common being vor, pregnancy, inflation, and feet-related fetishes. Like I said, we'll be getting to the nitty-gritty of many of these fetishes of the site, and I suppose suss out why certain ones are so popular, but it's quite unavoidable. Hell, I even remember as a teen being a big fan of both Star Fox and Sonic the Hedgehog. I really enjoyed looking at all the art and fanfictions of my favorite characters, and I'm sure you can also imagine my utter confusion when I kept noticing a very strange phenomenon, where those same characters would be drawn with their feet fully exposed and detailed in a way that I could only describe as weird. Almost as if something in my brain was telling me that these feet were being gandered at for reasons I didn't quite fully understand yet. Oh, and I also wondered why so many pictures featured the characters either being cartoonishly fat or being inflated with a bike pump. Yes, You might say DA was a place where my innocence was quite quickly taken away from me. Comment down below if you can relate. YCH, shorthand version of Your Commission Here. Some artists offer a preset pose in which they'll draw your character in place of the, preset pose. You might consider this kind of like using a base for a commission, though it was often one created by the artists themselves. Basically a template for commissions. I remember this being super popular among those who made custom DA avatar / user icons, because you could make a basic base for a GIF for an icon where everyone in your DA family could have matching GIFs or pictures based on said base. Creative Commons license. On November 16th, 2006, DeviantART added the feature to be able to submit art under the Creative Commons license, allowing users to choose how their work can be used. This was a pretty big landmark part of the site's history, and played a significant role in DA becoming one of the largest art hosting platforms ever created. Holiday art events. Holiday art events sounds pretty self-explanatory, what with October being a time when users may end up doing horror-related pieces, etc. However, on DA, these events can be related to more than just normal holidays. It can be instead holidays related to a fandom, like an anniversary of a game or a film franchise, the site's birthday itself, or, in some particularly interesting cases, events that can span an entire month long. You've probably heard of Inktober before, where the whole idea is to draw using, ink, but have you ever heard of Maternity May? The event where people with a pregnancy fetish draw a bunch of art related to, Or how about Turntober, which is the same thing, but for the vor fetish. Pretty intriguing stuff. Bonus entry. Forums. So, one feature I don't often hear people talk about when discussing DA are its forums. I, however, believe that they were a concentrated center for all things good and bad about the site, with the community and all its weird corners coming out in full swing. Over the course of this iceberg, I'll be covering specific aspects and memories I have related to these forums, with some of them being very, very obscure and very dark indeed. But for now, I want to at least mention them, since again, they were something that I enjoyed lurking on and seeing all the conversations for back in the day. I still remember so many of the video game and film arguments people had, and I might have even posted a few things in there from time to time, but we'll get to that later. Literature. As noted before, DA was also frequently used for written works as well, and in fact, many of the creepypastas we read on the Creepypasta Iceberg originated from DA, and not the Creepypasta Wiki. This meant DA was also a great place to read fanfiction, and I remember damn near every artist had at least one or two especially edgy poems about their feelings, the world, their life, etc., including myself. People even wrote full-fledged novels on this site and would later have them published officially, which I think is pretty badass. I have a lot of good memories reading fanfiction on this site, as well as even a few original stories here and there, so it'll always be associated with that in my eyes. Flash games. Yes indeed, DeviantART was also once the home of hundreds of Flash games, all of which, sadly enough, was made useless when Flash went defunct. Thousands of budding developers took to the art-sharing site and made a variety of games, most of which were just stuff like dress-up games and little visual novel / choose-your-own-adventure stuff, and occasionally minigames. I remember quite a few of those make-your-own Sonic the Hedgehog character templates being pretty popular back in the day. There are still some games that are functional to this day, however, but many are lost to the sands of time. Which, speaking of, removed features. As DA has become more streamlined and user-friendly, certain features have been changed or axed completely. Some for obvious reasons, with DA shifting more towards the business aspects of art and a lot less the social media aspect of the website, and others in an attempt to modernize the site. Some noteworthy features that were taken away include custom gallery folder icons, custom journal skins, which again were super popular to use back in the day, HTML and CSS coding, which again could be used to customize your page, the critique widget, which was a place where you could see all the pieces someone had officially critiqued on their page, deviation and friends list manager, daily page views and other statistics, online and offline statuses on people's profiles, friend birthday notices, the general message navigation tab, and much, much more. It should be noted that the majority of these things were changed in 2017 when DA was acquired by Wix.com Incorporated for $36 million and came with some major changes in order to integrate the sites together, such as deviantART/deviantArt brand change. Though a small change, all the branding for DeviantArt was once written with the word deviant in all lowercase letters and the word art in all capital letters. And for some odd reason, this was changed from its rather iconic branding to a more standard spelling. Also, the main icon and symbol of the site was changed from this to this, which, while again minor, many found to be a bad change and a sign of desperate moves to change the site from what many people loved to this more business-forward approach that it has now. Subscriptions. This was also another new feature added within the last few years. Subscriptions allow people to be able to create art that can only be viewed via a subscription to the artist. So basically, it's kind of like a Patreon page, but done directly from within DeviantArt. This was a controversial new feature, as some enjoyed the way that it was before, when everything on the site could be seen for free, a truly endless gallery. On the other hand, this is an objective good as far as artists being able to be paid outside of commissions, and can be seen as another source of potential revenue for any freelancing artist. That being said, I don't know how many people actually use this feature on DeviantArt, since it is a far less popular site now than it was before. But we'll get to that momentarily. God, I wish that were me. Now this is a classic. This is one of those super infamous images from the website that really got rather widespread. God, I wish that were me is a comment made by BigJB21 on October 16th of 2012. And this is the picture that this man commented upon and wished that he was in. This piece was uploaded on January 15th of 2011 by user Misson002. This piece features a small man being cradled like a baby by a larger woman, and BigJB21 really wishes that he was that small little man being cradled like a child. According to knowyourmeme.com, yes, I know, just shut up and listen to the quote. On April 7th of 2015, a screenshot of the 3D art and BigJB21's comment was submitted to r/cringeanarchy, where it received more than 1,300 votes, 97% upvoted, and 60 comments prior to being archived. That day, a screenshot of BigJB21's DeviantArt page was also uploaded to Imgur, showcasing that he had a collection of diaper fetish art titled Diapered Kids. The image and accompanying comment would also make its way to 4chan, thus the comment, God, I wish that were me, became a popular reaction image to post under stuff, unquote. Now, in case you're wondering, the artist who made this piece is a middle-aged woman who enjoys making 3D art for their fetish of turning adults into babies and then having them be humiliated by being breastfed, put into diapers, and bathed, etc. It's, well, you know, I mean, there's lots of opinions one could have about such a thing, but if you were, you know, wondering what my opinion of it was, you know, what's the old night owl's thoughts on this, you know, I'd say it's fucking disgusting! And, pretty weird in my humble opinion. But who am I to judge, I suppose? It would seem that they are still fairly active and still all these years later, making this exact same type of art. Whatever makes them happy, I suppose. As for Big JB21, well, sadly it seems his account has been deleted and scrubbed from the web as far as I was able to see. No doubt due to the trolling he surely receives from this newfound publicity. Though, there is a PLZ account with his avatar as a sort of strange memento of what was. Which, speaking of, bonus entry, PLZ or please accounts. So, here's a random bit of info that if you happen to use DeviantArt as a social media website back during the day, you're probably aware of, and everyone else, you've probably never ever heard of this. But there are actually hundreds, if not thousands, of what the community called PLZ accounts. You see, while DeviantArt had its own batch of emojis and even GIF emojis that you could use and the like, many hungered for, well, more. And that's when someone realized that when you @ someone's account on DA, be it in a comment, a journal, in the forums, etc., their account profile picture would come up as a result. So what people would do is they started creating accounts with names like Smile PLZ or insert random character or emotion here please to use them purely as new emojis. The PLZ part being the part that you write in so that you can more easily identify which accounts are just specifically adding a useless emoji and which ones are an actual person. These things were really popular, and since you were allowed to have GIFs as icons too, many of these allowed for thousands of new emojis on the site. Someone could even create an entire set all their own based around their own OC or whatever. And speaking of OCs, Sonic Recolors / OCs. Like I said before, Sonic is connected deep into the roots of DA, and with it came a lot of fan art, in particular of OCs. Now, OCs legit just mean original character, and in many contexts, especially these days, an OC can just be a character that you made. But the only real reason this sort of redundant term came about was that of its original context. That being, OC was an original character you made from within a fandom. So in other words, you created an original character based on, say, the Sonic franchise. Now, this does get a little wishy-washy, as I remember I always used to call these sorts of characters fan characters, as you're a fan of that franchise and made a character to fit in to that series. But I think many took it far more seriously than that, and thus the term OC became the de facto term for such a creation. Anyway, OCs, while not at all exclusive to Sonic, in fact there are OCs for nearly every franchise you can imagine, still being made to this very day, OCs became mainly associated with Sonic fandom due to the sheer amount of Sonic OCs that existed and were constantly being created, including a rather infamous figure that we'll get to in a moment. For some time, it was a meme to search your name plus the Hedgehog to see if an OC has been made, since many of these OCs were literally named stuff like Ryan the Hedgehog, Susie the Hedgehog, James, Frankie, hell, Dylan the Hedgehog, why not? In fact, why don't we look up and see what Dylan the Hedgehog looks like? Okay, so I looked up Dylan the Hedgehog on Google, and I really do not mean to demean or make fun of anyone here, okay? It's not my purpose, but I am kind of flabbergasted by just how many random Dylan characters there are, including Dylan the Hedgehog, age 15, gender male, relationship, friend of Zack and Shakira, enemy of anti-Zack, powers going fast, likes girls, edges, geometry because of edges, Linkin Park, pizza, dislikes evil Sonic rainbows, bio, he's like Sonic but faster. He was created by Dr. Eggman in his secret Syrian base. He then became a good guy and almost cooled Eggman. Now, I'm gonna guess this is this is a parody here, okay? But some of these are definitely not. You got this orange, like, ascot wearing Sonic the Hedgehog character called Dylan the Hedgehog. We got this emo hedgehog called Dylan the Hedgehog, you know? Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like that guy. He's a pretty good Dylan the Hedgehog. We got Shadow the Hedgehog, but blue, right? And green eyes. Can't forget the green eyes. And this is also Dylan the Hedgehog. We got like 80s hair metal band Dylan the Hedgehog. You know, he's got something going on. We got this Dylan the Hedgehog, which is like this echidna hedgehog, silver boot wearing guy. I like this Dylan the Hedgehog. This is like a peak Dylan the Hedgehog, I must say. Very, very cool. We got Dylan the Hedgehog, which is, yeah, that's a pretty interesting Dylan the Hedgehog. Honestly, I could probably go on for quite some time, as there's a lot of Dylan the Hedgehogs, as it turns out. But among these, something I was not actually aware of, which I figured I might as well point out, is there actually is an official Dylan the Porcupine from the Archie Sonic the Hedgehog comics, which is, you know, I didn't know about that. That's pretty cool. So there you go. I may not have made the cut to be a hedgehog officially, but Porcupine, I've got it covered. I've got some representation right there. So, pretty cool. But at any rate, the most common trait among these OCs was that they are often blatant recolors of canon characters, which became a really big aspect of what they were mocked for, essentially. In addition to their often over-the-top and dark backstories, being the brother or sister of Shadow or Sonic or something like that, and they were almost always created by Dr. Robotnik through one means or another. Though in the end, it is all rather harmless fun, mostly done by kids and young teens at that. It is still rather amusing just how many of these exist, and continue to be created to this very day, of course. And yes, some of these certainly have more effort and skill put into them than others, but there always has been something rather charming about this whole practice of creating a fan character for a series that you really enjoy. It's like peak enjoyment. It's when you like something so much, you just have to create some kind of thing to be a part of it. These characters are also almost always self-inserts through some means or another as well. But like I said, it's harmless fun, and although it certainly can be a bit cringy from time to time, it is overall something that I quite enjoy looking into. Which brings us to our next subject, and without a doubt, the most infamous and smelly part of this entrance. Christian. If you know, you know. And you knew this individual was going to show up eventually on this iceberg, so we might as well cover it now. For those who have lived under a rock and clicked on this video yet still don't know who Christian is, well, Christian Weston Chandler, but now going by Christine, aka Christian, is quite possibly the most well-documented person on the internet, with entire wikis dedicated to them, countless video essays, and an ongoing 60-plus part documentary series by YouTuber Gino Samuel, which if you want to have an unbiased and crystal clear look at Chris's story and why so many are interested in this individual, as well as what they did to get so much attention over the years, then I highly recommend Gino's series. That being said, Christian only had a brief presence on DeviantArt before being banned for numerous community violations, which we might as well go into detail about now. According to the CWC Wiki, which is the main hub where everything related to Christian's life is meticulously documented, the page entitled DeviantArt notes, quote, DeviantArt is a large online art community where artists can host their artwork and receive comments and critique from fellow artists and art appreciators. Being one of the most popular amateur art websites in the world, DeviantArt attracts the best and the worst of us, especially the worst. In the trolling world, DeviantArt is notorious as a den for Sonic recolors and poorly drawn panel, so it's no surprise that Chris became a member, unquote. It then goes on to note the 3 accounts Chris had on the site and why they each got banned at the time. Of note is that Chris Chan was actually one of the very early adopters of the site. Quote, Sonichu, established 28th of 2005 and banned in early September of 2008, presumably for deviantART artwork. Sonichu site, established the 19th of September of 2008, permaban for a kind of nebulously defined failure, like the blatant deviantART from Sonichu number 7. In his next account's journal, Chris said he had no idea why he was banned. Reading comprehension is apparently not part of the most prestigious reaches of the American education. CWCpedia. Used while this CWCpedia was down, the account was open on the 9th of August 2009 and closed on the 28th for evasion of the previous ban and posting erotic artwork featuring underage characters, which is to say, Rose Chu's washing machine pic from episode 20. It was actually deleted before the account was banned completely, unquote. Now, for better context, Chris Chan is pretty well known for their fan comic series entitled Sonichu, where Sonic the Hedgehog and a Pikachu merge to become a new, original character. And while this is a rabbit hole perhaps saved for a different time, of note is the comic's crude and badly done artwork. Chris Chan inserting themselves into the story, with entire issues and parts being a rather interesting look into their bizarre psyche, and their, at the time, love quest to find a boyfriend-free girl, their hatred for trolls, as well as their general biases, etc. Of note of these biases is Chris Chan's then hatred of gay people, which reflected in both the comic as well as their YouTube channel and other pages. Now, goading Chris into doing something stupid is, frankly, a little too easy, some may say. But certainly back in the day, one of the easiest ways to get Chris angry was by simply implying that they were gay, and that their original characters, the Sonichus, are also gay. So in an attempt to prove that they weren't gay, and to assuage trolls from drawing their character having gay relations, Chris would draw hetero of both themselves and their characters on various occasions, thus the bans from DeviantArt. Finally of note is 2 greetings messages collected via the Wayback Machine from Chris's profiles. The first being what one would find if they stumbled upon their second account, Sonichu site. Quote, Mood Joy, listening to Light Rock Z95.1, reading My Comics as I Draw Them, or feeling nostalgic, watching Sonic the Hedgehog, Family Guy, anime, etc., playing Guitar Hero and Sonic on PlayStation 3, eating Healthy Choice TV entrees, drinking Pepsi Cola, similar formula found in CWC Cola. Greetings, my loyal Sonichu and Rose Chu fans. Christian Weston Chandler is the official owner of this page, and I'm here to tell you the news of this page. The main reason I am uploading the Sonichu and Rose Chu fan art, more than my original and official stuff, is because this DeviantArt account is to be the official Sonichu and Rose Chu fan art section of Sonichu.net. I am thinking of backing up my comic book pages as well as more original art on here in the future. But for now, this is basically for fan art, so enjoy the other people's work I have been mostly delighted to find and have received. Just a reminder that if you'd like to offer a submission to the fan art section of your own, you may create your own DeviantArt account and upload it, or them, or you may email me your fan art at chrischansonichu@aol.com. Peace to all my loyal Sonichu and Rose Chu fans. Christian Weston Chandler, unquote. And the second being what one would be greeted with upon the third and last page of the CWCpedia. Quote, I am Christian Weston Chandler, born on February 24th, 1982, as Christopher, then changed my first name in 1989. I am the true, original creator of Sonichu and Rose Chu, the Electric Hedgehog Pokemon. I created him on March 17th of 2000, with my copyrights on every image, as well as full comic books, except no substitute. I had an array of CWC sites before: CWC's PokeSite 2, El PokeSite DRWC, and most importantly, the original Sonichu site, known as CWC's Sonichu site, which was a spin-off of CWC's PokeSite 2. I had to take the websites down June 2009 because my internet bullies/trolls hacked into my webmaster accounts. But I am back in the saddle of CWCpedia, the new official CWC's Sonichu and Rosechu site. Link. I will be putting up a sampling of the original Sonichu and Rosechu drawings from myself onto this account, but I have opened this new account up because my past Sonichu site account was permanently banned. I forgot why. This account will mainly be used to get in touch with choice fan artists, unquote. The final thing of note, DA related to Chris, is the Sonichu fan club, which Chris deemed as an official sanctioned Sonichu DA community. This group can still be accessed and looked at to this very day, though it seems to have gone inactive around 2015. The group's info page notes, quote, "We are a fan club of CWC's Sonichu. TM. We're like a typical fan club of any popular cartoon/anime series. The chat room is mostly used for RPs, and we mainly gather good fan art from DA and collaborate with fans. We are fairly new too, so we encourage more new members right now. No trolls, please," unquote. Like I said, Chris Chan is a well-known and interesting internet figure, to put it plainly. But as far as DA is concerned, this is about as far as it goes. Still, Chris Chan, much like Sonic the Hedgehog himself, is tied to the site's identity and history, and it's worth noting before we eventually dive into the more obscure locales and generally interesting internet figures that came from the site. Eclipse. Eclipse is the name for the major UI change from this to this, and sort of everything that changed with it, including taking features away, adding some new features, and in general being a massively unpopular change by the community at large. Now, last I checked, there was ways you could still utilize the old UI and setup of the website, but it seems this was one of the deciding factors for many to leave the website, along with various other controversial changes, in addition to the final two entries of this tier: dying popularity. It's no secret that DeviantArt is not the site it once was as far as popularity is concerned. In fact, many would say that it's just straight up dying, and at a fast rate no less. There's a lot of factors that go into this fate, such as the general mismanagement from the top, lackluster updates, failure to follow current trends, and the community seeking better opportunities in other platforms. That last one in particular is noteworthy, as many artists have gone everywhere from Tumblr to Instagram to Twitter and beyond for sharing their art. There was a perception for a long time that if you were an artist on the internet, DeviantArt was the place that you had an account. These days, while you may see someone with a DeviantArt account, it's not their main hub for their art anymore. After all, if you want your art to be seen, it doesn't do much good to post it to a dying website, now does it? Of course, many would also point to DeviantArt's general reputation as one of the reasons why many artists may have been apprehensive from posting there. But honestly, I do think that this is a bit of a cop-out. I think there are plenty of places that have some of the absolute most fiendish, devious shit posted to it on a daily basis, and no one really bats an eye or even cares at this point anymore. No, rather, it's DeviantArt's mismanagement and refusal to actually change in a way that its community enjoys that is the biggest problem. And again, in addition to just not being able to follow any of the trends or evolve the site in any kind of meaningful way. Besides a random shitty new UI change, of course, which all that did was upset people and change what was once a perhaps nostalgic look for many in exchange for no real new features, outside of like subscriptions and the like. That being said, there are still some dedicated communities on the site, And even if it is, as a whole, a shell of what it once was, it's still not dead yet. You never know, crazier things have happened. Maybe they can turn things around. Or maybe not. Who knows? Lack of archive. What makes this all the worse, and particularly sad in some cases when documenting the history and the like of this site, is DA is horrendous when it comes to preservation. Quite infamously, the site lacks any form of an archive, meaning if a piece is deleted or a user's page is banned, anything and everything they posted is gone forever. Even using the Wayback Machine yields little to no results, which I suppose on one hand allows those who wanted to leave the site and their history behind for good with a clean break, but on the other hand, internet storytellers like myself are kind of shit out of luck. But all the same, that means a lot of internet history, some really crazy and interesting pieces at that, are pretty much lost to time for better or worse. Though a weird exception to this is if you're a user that favorited a piece of art from a user that got banned or shut their account down, you can still view the art from that person's favorites. Or if you have a direct link to said art, it can be also viewed as well. Which is kinda bizarre. I would have assumed it was all deleted, but these still being viewable through these means suggests that it could be archived in a kind of limbo space that can only be accessed but very limitedly. Quite peculiar, to be sure. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. I hope that you enjoyed this first part. It's mostly about stuff that's more general about the website, as well as a few more notable figures. And in part 2, we'll start getting into the more nitty-gritty specifics of the website. Going over this iceberg is a lot of fun for me because, as I've noted quite a few times throughout this first part, I grew up using this website as a young preteen to teenager, and it was just a lot of fun. And it's only going to get more and more interesting the further we go down. Before I let you go though, I want to make sure to take this time to thank all of my loyal patrons and channel members for helping to support me and the channel as a whole, including all of my night eggs and night owlets, as well as all of my great night owls, including Star Punch Gaming, Hex Maniac Hannah, Cruisin' Obscura, Tony Terramaya, Justice, Macabre Kaiju, Ho-Hot, and Medusa's Hex, as well as a very special thank you to all of my arch owls, including the Good Chi Vibe Zen Garden Party, the Wise Daniel, as well as the extremely talented Doggy NGT, the Gun Totin' Thursday 14, the Fearless Forgotten Ace, and the Super Saiyan Sword. Until next time, this has been Dylan the Night Owl, flying off.